So the reason why I want to watch this one, by the way, this video is once again by Upper Echelon. We've watched one of his videos before. This one is titled "The Temu Invasion. Do not use it." My girlfriend, she has two daughters, and all of their friends buy things on Temu. Every single one of them. So I want to hear what he has to say about Temu.
And still choose to do it, that kind of makes you a bad person. And for anyone who isn't aware of what's going on, today's video is here to help you. Let's start with general context. Depending where you look, and also depending on time frame in particular, Temu is the fastest growing application in the world.
By a lot,
Initially
it looks
appearing
like.
on Western platforms in late 2022, the app had garnered over 50 million global downloads in just 6 months. Since then, it's grown to more than 500 million downloads as of April 2024,
Jesus.
with no signs of slowing down, which makes it an actual contender in terms of global retail commerce if the trend continues. Temu attracts customers with a variety of different techniques, but the gist of it boils down to a central pair of methods. One, everything is absurdly cheap. Their motto is shop like.
So this is the only thing I know about Temu. Is like yeah, look at this stuff. You have a shaver, which one of those things, like a Philips one of those things, would cost you like $150. $10. Shirt, $6.69.
Like a billionaire because you don't have to worry about cost, which allows people to spend a relatively small amount of money and still get a large number of items. Pretty simple. Two, Temu relies on a system of gamification to make shopping a lot more dynamic. Think about the experience you might have at something like a Vegas casino instead of a retail store, and you'll be getting much closer to the actual atmosphere of what it's like shopping on Temu. Flash deals, special lightning events, gamified features, and overall a sort of interactive experience that simultaneously lets them increase user engagement dramatically, as well as harvest a ton of data from their customers in the process through loyalty.
I want to see like examples of that because I don't know what he means by that, like the gamifying of it. Like this looks like Amazon to me.
Programs, progress tracking, and a social system that encourages people to share with each other. Purely from an engagement perspective, it's genius. Temu is now shipping something like 1 million packages every single day in the United States alone after the span of less than 2 years operating, indicating just how successful they are at penetrating the American retail market. But that's about as far as the positive aspects go, because under the surface, Temu is actually a highly damaging application.
Okay, tell me why they're evil.
Negative side effects, many of which are simply unknown to their primary customer base. First off, though not the main subject for today, Temu is owned by a parent organization called PDD Holdings. PDD Holdings separately owned another application called Pinduoduo, which was delisted from the Google Play Store at one point because it was malware. Off-Play Store versions of the app were using a string of zero-day vulnerabilities to spy on their users. And again, that's not the main concern for today, or the fact that Temu itself has incredibly invasive data capture mechanisms.
They all do.
It's worth mentioning.
Okay, I'm sick of hearing this argument about TikTok or whatever having all of these invasive features. Every single app does. Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. All of these apps are super invasive. All of them. Can we just stop arguing which one's worse and say they're all horrible?
Briefly at the beginning here. To be sure, using an application that might steal your information or could have detrimental effects on your privacy does not make you a bad person, even if you choose to do it knowingly, which is dumb, but again, not evil or bad. So how could I possibly say that in the intro? And the answer to that is slave labor. China, currently, is perpetrating a mass detention and political indoctrination campaign in the Xinjiang province against a subset of their population called...
Let's be clear before we get into this part. I know next to nothing about China. So I'm not going to be that knowledgeable on this.
...called Uyghur Muslims. Abduction, detention, and forced labor are actually mild by comparison. Some alleged accounts detail programs such as forced organ harvesting or involuntary sterilization. But the important fact to consider is that by some estimates, hundreds of thousands of detainees in this re-education camp system are subjected to forced labor. That labor disproportionately affects the following industries, among others: cotton, electronics, footwear, garments, hair products, textiles, and toys. Comparing that list to Temu, we can see that the majority of products sold, and certainly the majority of popular products on the entire platform, are directly connected to one of those industries, primarily cotton, electronics, textiles, and toys. Focusing deeper on cotton in particular here, it becomes clear just how big the problem actually is. See,
Go
according
on.
to joint research from two different companies, Applied DNA Sciences being the first and Stratum Reservoir being the second, 19% of sample merchandise selling in the United States, particularly garment clothing, contained cotton from the Xinjiang region of China.
Okay, I see.
Of those items, 57% had false labels, claiming that the origin of the material was United States only, meaning that there is an exorbitant amount of slave labor products circulating in the U.S. economy.
And there's, from what I understand, there is a very, very big difference between slave labor and just paying very, very little. Like a lot of regions in China or Thailand, I believe the other one is, pay very, very little for the factory work that they do. But also in those regions, everything pays very, very little. Slave labor is different. The treatment of them potentially just not getting paid at all, and like where they work and the conditions and everything like that. It's a very, very different thing.
The United States does have laws on book attempting to prevent all this. However, as we'll discuss in just a second here, those laws clearly do not work. The best example here would be the UFLPA, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which is, quote, an act to ensure that goods made with forced labor in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of the People's Republic of China do not enter the United States market, end quote, which is a very good law to have if it were able to be effective. This is where I have to do a sort of daisy chain of facts to...
Okay, I'm going to just interject at this point in the video and say, I think what he is saying here is obvious. If you are buying something for that is normally $150 and you are buying it for 10, one of two things is true. Either it sucks or there is something shady about it. Either it's stolen or they use something like slave labor. Otherwise, how would they be able to sell it to you for that? So I think most people who are buying off of Temu already know that and just don't care. I could be wrong, but that's how it seems to me.
Properly showcase things, but try to bear with me. First, Temu actually takes a dramatic loss on international shipments. According to analysis from Wired, the company loses roughly $30 per order, losing almost $1 billion annually in a bid to gain market share by keeping prices low. Second, according to Business of Apps, the average order size of a Temu shipment, I keep saying Temu or Temu and mixing it up because both are valid, but you know what I mean. The average order size of a Temu shipment, which is prepackaged and sorted in mainland China, is roughly $26 to $28 depending on age group. And third, there is an import tax exemption policy called the de minimis exception, which allows packaged goods under a value of $800 to enter the United States without reporting their contents to CBP, which is Customs and Border Protection. According to the U.S. Select Committee on the CCP, 685 million de minimis shipments entered the United States in 2022 alone, indicating that 30% of all incoming de minimis shipments total come from Temu and Shine. Shine being extremely similar to Temu, just focusing on fashion
Heard about
and
that one too.
Garments without emphasis on electronics or toys. Also a Chinese company, also shipping over 1 million packages per day. Furthermore, 60% of all de minimis shipments into the United States come from China, and this is based on figures from 2022, which was before the application began hitting 30 to 40 million downloads per month.
Actually,
see the problem?
When I see this, I see. So they are comparing this to other companies, and because these other companies are paying for their duties, because I'm assuming they're bigger packages, but because Shein and Temu are sending them as small packages, they don't have to pay any import fees.
Because of this framework, Temu is able to ship enormous amounts of product into the United States, as the company chooses to do so at a loss, without disclosing what is in those packages, completely circumventing the UFLPA attempt at excluding forced labor products from the U.S. economy, and that is the real problem. Funnily enough, what
so they
Temu
use that way of sending small packages to not have to report what's inside of them, and then they can use slave labor because they don't have to report where they're coming from. I understand.
Choosing to do right now seems very reminiscent of something that happened about 20 years ago and was effectively remedied in the furniture industry. In simple terms, China would import US timber and then manufacture goods at a fraction of the cost, shipping them back to the United States, and subsequently running domestic manufacturers out of business by taking a loss on their bedroom furniture sales. Many companies did declare bankruptcy during all this after being unable to compete with foreign imports. That tends to happen when you have labor costs that are dramatically lower, such as involuntary forced labor to tie things back in. But this problem was mostly solved.
How do you fix that? Right? Hear me out. The obvious answer is, we don't let China import cheaper things into the US, or I'm in Canada, and therefore you stop that from happening, and it increases labor here because those furniture manufacturers in the US, Canada, wherever you are, then have a job again because they don't have the cheaper labor in that they use in China. But you do that, all of a sudden timber sales go down in the US because they've been selling billions of dollars of timber to these furniture manufacturers in China. And now these loggers, let's call them, have less money in their pockets. So either way, someone's losing money. You see what I mean?
By a multi-stage extended enforcement of anti-dumping legislation. For anyone who doesn't know, there is a global economy, there is international trade, but it's not exactly free. If you try to import and sell various different goods in the United States for a price point that is considered too low or below normal value, you can trigger...
Wasn't it proven that Temu steal personal info? Every company steals personal info. All of them. Every time you put your email in, they're stealing your info. Every single time. Like, I hate to tell you, I hate to be the one to break the news, but every time.
Anti-dumping laws designed to prevent the negative consequences of that happening. Even further, there's import tariffs, like the ones that just got jacked up super high against Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers, which is a whole separate can of worms. But the point is that while we have trade, we absolutely do not have free trade. Based on sheer volume alone, Temu and Shine could easily trigger anti-dumping investigations in the US and Europe, because that seems to be precisely what they are doing. Create products overseas with minimal cost of labor, because an unknown but substantial portion of that labor is slaves. Ship them overseas, taking a substantial loss on every single order in the process to rapidly gain as much market share as you can, and advertise your service as the cheaper alternative to Amazon.
I would like to know what the long-term goal is of this, though. If Temu is just trying to take market share by taking a loss on everything that they're importing to the US, is their long-term goal to overtake Amazon and then just jack their prices up? Like, is that it? Because I don't understand that.
While also being subsidized by the government for that purpose, while circumventing the laws designed to stop you from doing all this by ensuring that you don't ship orders that fall outside the de minimis exemption, rendering yourself immune. I can certainly understand the general appeal of Temu on a surface level. Stuff is expensive, inflation hits hard, it's fun to go shop and get a bunch of things for cheap, etc., etc. But once you become aware of what's happening, the picture necessarily changes. It may seem like moral grandstanding here, but if you know that a company exports the majority of their goods from a country where slave labor takes place, if you know that the most popular products they ship fall into the specific categories where that labor is used most prominently, and if you know that the company utilizes a very specific import policy to not report package contents to Customs and Border Patrol, to nominally,
look how hard these dudes are working.
Of what's happening, the picture necessarily changes. It may seem like moral grandstanding here, but if you know that a company exports the majority of their goods from a country where slave labor takes place,
how is their left arm not just enormous?
They ship fall into the specific categories where that labor is used most prominently.
I work out a lot.
If you know that the company
I don't think I could do
a
that.
very specific import policy to not report package contents to Customs and Border Patrol, while 1 in 5 sampled products, just to readdress the prior example here, have cotton from that particular outlawed region, how could you possibly justify using it? It really just comes down to a cost-benefit analysis. Do you want cheaper things that have a very real chance of being produced by slave labor in a concentration camp? Or do you not? That's the trade-off. You can take advantage of a company that's shouldering a $30 loss on every package they ship here as a technique to gain market share as quick as they can, and you can enjoy the absolutely insane level of discount that their platform generally offers, if you choose to, but those discounts are paid for somewhere, and one of the ways they get paid, instead of your own pocket rather, is loss of freedom and autonomy for others. I can understand if someone thinks my data isn't that important to me, who cares if I risk it, in exchange for cheap consumer goods. I disagree, obviously, but that's just a personal opinion. However, when you cross the bridge to things
So yeah, what he's saying there is someone loses out on this no matter what. Right? So
like genocidal internment camps, resulting in cheaper exported goods, with a damaging impact on domestic companies as a kicker, I don't know, the stakes get a little bit higher on that. For anyone who didn't know any of this, that's fine and completely understandable, by the way. But now, anyone who watched this video through to the end, you have to make a choice when using Temu, because you now understand what Temu actually is and some of the wider implications it has in the background. It's a fun little gamified shopping app, true, and the prices are comparatively low, which is awesome, you may think.
man,
But it's also a complex method of damaging foreign economies
I
through
get that.
predatory practices and legal subterfuge with human rights violations thrown in. That's it. If you want to support the channel, please check out the links down below.
Great video as always from Upper Echelon. He always knocks those out of the park. The problem is the way the economy is here. You have a daughter. In this situation, I'm giving you a daughter. You now have a daughter. Congratulations on the child. Mello, I'll read your thing after in a second. What was I saying? You have a daughter. And you are working a job that you get paid just enough to pay your bills, your mortgage, all your electricity, your water, your groceries, everything. You maybe can save $50 a month, and that's if like you don't take your daughter out for one dinner a month. Your daughter turns 13. Now let's say 11, and all her friends at school are straightening their hair every day. You have $50 a month extra. Now you can take your daughter out for ice cream twice, or you can buy her that straightener. But guess what? That straightener is not actually $50. It's $150. But you go on Temu, and all of a sudden that straightener is $10. I don't know these exact numbers, by the way. It's a lot more beneficial for you to buy that $10 one. And maybe it doesn't work as well, but your daughter's 11. She doesn't know. She just wants to straighten her hair like everyone else at school. And guess what? You can still take your daughter out twice that month for ice cream and get her the straightener. That's why people are buying stuff off of Temu. Everything is so expensive now here. And what's the fix for that? I don't freaking know. But yeah. Anyway, great video. Moving on.